Well, good morning. Look at you. Man, you guys haven't made a first service in a long time, have you? You're all here, you're all jacked, you're all ready. You got an extra hour of sleep last night. I get it. It's not the coffee, and it's not that you want to see me. You're just like, I'm up early, I might as well go to first service, right? All right, hey, if we've never met, my name's TJ, pastor here at the Shore Church, and I'm so excited that you are here today. Now, we are in week number 1 of a series, but before I jump into this new series, Taste and See, I want to highlight something that you got on your way in here. In there, you got a packet of information, and one of them is a card that looks like this, and on the inside is what we're doing for people this Thanksgiving. You see, every year we sponsor families so that they can be fully fed in this Thanksgiving, and there's a memorable experience with them. So if you want to check that out, there's a way to donate financially to making it happen. There's a way to buy the goods and that we can deliver them to these families in need. So if you want to participate in that, take the card, go shopping, and follow the instructions. Is that cool with you guys? That's one of our, what we call kingdom builders, one of our kingdom builders projects, because we want to build God's kingdom instead of our own. We want to build God's kingdom ahead of ours. And so one of the other things that we've been working on recently is started last Christmas with the purchase of land in the Dominican Republic. We raised money on Christmas Eve to build that building in the Dominican Republic. We have been raising money to finish that building and to put the FF&E, the tables and the chairs and the equipment to build a skills training center in La Barquita, right there in the middle of the capital city, that little neighborhood. And I'm proud to tell you guys that we have met and exceeded the goal that we have for this project, and it is 100% done. Isn't that awesome? The entire building process should be done in the first quarter of next year. And then when you go on the mission trip this summer, you get to see exactly what's happening there. You get to see the kid you sponsor. You get to see the building we built. You get to make an incredible impact in somebody else's life. Isn't that awesome? That's super cool. All right. Now, we're in this series called Taste and See, and since we're in November, it's kind of that kickoff to the Thanksgiving season, right? Now, I love Thanksgiving because it's not Christmas. I love Christmas. I love Jesus. I love the birth of Jesus. But basically everything else, you can keep it, right? Like, that's who I am. But right now, if you go to any store, what's in there? Is it Thanksgiving stuff or Christmas stuff? It's Christmas. It's like, hold your roll, big guy. Red suit guy. You've got to hang on to the turkey day first. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I love Thanksgiving is because you can't commercialize it. It's about being thankful. Like, you can't be like, you have to buy your family $1,000 worth of something for Thanksgiving. Can't do it. It's a turkey, right? Like, how expensive can a turkey get? It's all about enjoying family and being thankful and enjoying. I love that. One of the years that our family got to celebrate Thanksgiving, we weren't living in Sarasota where my family is. My wife and I and 2 kids at that time, we have 4 now, but we only had 2 then, were living in California. And it was our first Thanksgiving, I believe, outside of Sarasota, so we didn't have family around, and there was a family in our church that adopted us, and we loved them. We loved them very, very much, and they brought us into their home, and they allowed us to have Thanksgiving with them. Well, these are West Coast people, and we are East Coast. Really, we're Southerners, you know what I'm saying? And so our idea of Thanksgiving food is a little different. They do turkey, and they do stuffing, and they do green beans, but when my wife brought the sweet potato casserole, they were like, what's that? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look like something I would want to put in my mouth, right? It just doesn't have that looks appealing sort of look to it. Anybody else ever go to your Thanksgiving meal and it's like potluck style and you look at something and you're going, nope, right? Like mystery casserole right there, not going to eat it. And so that was my wife's sweet potato casserole. She put it out on the counter where all the other food was, and they go, what's this? And my wife go, it's delicious. You gotta taste and see, right? And they're going, right. And so they take what they call, I call it the courtesy scoop. Okay. Just a teeny tiny, that way if you take one bite and don't like it, it looks like you ate something, like it's little. Who would take that small of a scoop, right? So they take, but here's the deal. Once they tasted it and they saw that in fact it was a very delicious item to be had, and they went back for more. But the whole thing is the appearance was deceiving, right? They had to taste before they saw that it was actually good. Now, do you physically taste and you physically see that it's good? No, you experience it. There's something that we experience sometimes. When it comes to God, sometimes we need to taste and see that he's good. In fact, the book of Psalms admonishes us to do this. The psalmist David is writing. He's saying, taste and see that the Lord is good. Now, David is kind of mixing some senses here, because can you taste God? Like if you could physically get a representation of God, would you go up and taste him? Right? Like, have you ever, if you have toddlers, have they ever gone through the phase where they just lick weird things? Yeah, they're tasting the world. I'm like, that is not normal. You got to stop that before somebody sees us doing that, okay? But you can't can you see God? No. But so is he referring to literally tasting and literally seeing? No. It's an invitation, isn't it? If I said, hey, taste and see the casserole is good, it's a physical taste. But if I said, hey, this sport is really fun, taste and see. Can you taste it? No, but you can see it. But here's God, you can't taste or see him. So what is David alluding to? What is God referring to in his scriptures? Well, I think there's something important for you and I in this little passage that we're going to walk out today. Is that cool with you guys? I think there's an order to this that is really important. You've got to taste before you see. You've got to taste, and then you will be able to see that the Lord is good. There's an order to this. If you do this, then you will experience that. And I think when we walk through life, sometimes we want to experience that without doing this. We want to see before we taste. We want to see the results before we even try. Does that make sense to you guys? That's me. I do that a lot. I want to go to the store, look at the Wismadoo that I want to buy, and then I go on Amazon and buy it for cheaper. Right? I want to see before I taste. You know what I'm saying? I want to try it before I buy it. But God is saying, hey, there's some things in life that you got to taste before you see. And so this word taste, let's break that word taste down just a little bit. This is kind of my translation of this. The word taste is God giving an invitation to us. He's inviting you into his life. He's inviting you into his plan. He's inviting you into the lifestyle and the purpose and the calling that he has for you. He wants you to come taste it. Just come on in here, man. He's got arms wide open, an invitation to you. And then when we say yes to the invitation, what happens? We have a revelation. We get to see. What we couldn't see before, now we can see. But we have to say yes to the invitation before we experience the revelation. Does that make sense to you guys? 2 people got me. Okay, we're going to keep preaching on this the whole time, and I hope by the end of it, you got it, okay? Taste and see. There's an invitation from God to the life that he's called you to. And when you say yes to the invitation and you start walking out the things that he's called you to do, you will have a revelation of the goodness of God. But many times in life we go, well, but God, can you show me how good you are before I say yes to you? And God says, if you say yes to me, you're going to see how good I am. And we want to get the order mixed around. Now, there's a guy in the Old Testament by the name of Moses. You guys have heard of him before, right? Moses, okay. He was born a Hebrew, which was a slave of the Egyptian people. They were living in Egypt. And for the last 400 or so years, they had been slaves, his people. But by miracle, God allowed him to be born a Hebrew, but to be raised in the house of Pharaoh, the king of all of Egypt. And as he's raised in this house, for the first 40 years of his life, he is used to the opulence of royalty. He has everything he could ever want. But God puts upon his heart to one day go out to the Hebrew people where they lived and see where they worked. And in Exodus chapter 21, we get to read a little bit about his calling, Exodus 3, but hang on for a second. Don't read this, okay? I got to keep going. Thank you. All right. See, he goes out to the Hebrew people and he sees an Egyptian person beating a Hebrew person. So the family that he was raised in was Egyptian, and by blood though he is Hebrew, and he's kind of conflicted. He's kind of conflicted because he's one person to these people and he's one person to these people, and when he sees someone abusing the other, he kills the Egyptian. And when his family finds out, the Pharaoh, the king, the all-powerful guy in the land finds out, Moses runs away. So the first 40 years of his life, he is living in royalty, and the next 40 years of his life, he's living as a shepherd. And it's while he's living as a shepherd, at the end of these 40 years, he sees something the burning bush. You guys may have heard of that, right? And out of that burning bush, the voice of God speaks, and he has a conversation with Moses. And I want you guys to look at this conversation really briefly in Exodus chapter 3. So now go, this is God speaking to Moses, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. Now, this is a big ask, isn't it? Because he's asking him to go back to the land that he ran away from. And he's asking him to go back and talk to Pharaoh and the Egyptians and the Egyptian people to let the Hebrew people go. But the problem is the Egyptians people do not know Moses by his strengths, but by his failures. He is defined by his worst day, by the fact that he murdered one of their own. Anybody else felt like you've been defined by your worst day? Maybe not even by others, but by yourself. And God is asking him to go back to the very place where he committed his worst sin. We're back to the place where he embarrassed himself the most or failed the most. And God's saying, I want you to go. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? I'm not the guy. God says, I want you, and your past doesn't bother me. But Moses is going, my past bothers me a whole lot though. Can I say something to you this morning? Your past may bother you, but it certainly doesn't bother God. Even though you feel like you're defined by your worst day and your worst moment, God looks over that and goes, I can handle it. And that's what he's doing to Moses right now. Moses is going, oh, no. I don't think so, God. I can't do this. It's not me. It's not who I am. And then the passage continues. And God said, I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. I'm going to pause on that. This is the sign. If you were asked by God to go back to your worst moment in history and talk to those people and journey through that process of going back there, would you ask for a sign from God? We ask God for signs for lesser things, don't we? Like God calls us to do something. Maybe most recently we've been working on this Dominican project, and you kind of felt that stirring in your heart to give towards that project, and you go, well, God, can you give me a sign? Right? You ever ask something like that? Or you see the neighbor that needs help or someone on the side of the road that needs help changing their tires, something like that, and you ask God, if it's you want me to help, will you give me a sign? You ever prayed prayers like that before? But here's the deal. You don't need a sign to do good things. But sometimes we throw up I'm super spiritual and I need a sign from God to do anything because God is in control of everything and I need to do all this, right? Well, we sound spiritual, but we're living a very faithless life when we do that. And so Moses is going, God, I can't do it. It's not me. It's a big thing. I don't think so. And God goes, okay, I'm going to give you a sign. Would you want a sign if you were Moses? For real, you guys aren't talking back very much to me this morning. I thought you had an extra hour of sleep. If you were Moses, would you want a sign? Yes, you would, wouldn't you? Because you ask God for signs right now, don't you? If you were Moses, you would want that sign. And look at the sign that God gives. Check this out. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. This is the sign. After you say yes to me, after you go to Egypt, after I deliver the people out of Egypt, after you cross the Red Sea and come back to this place right here, you're going to worship me, and that's your sign. God, you're not helping me out very much. What God is saying to Moses is you got to taste before you see. You got to say yes before you see what's happening next. Does that make sense to you guys? There are times in my life where I feel prompted by God to do something, and I feel like I'm being really spiritual and going, God, will you give me a sign? And God's going, I just said go, and you're supposed to go. What's this whole sign thing about? And God says to Moses, if you go, you will see. If you say yes, you'll see exactly what it is I'm calling you to. And so in our life, I think there's some things that we can learn from the life of Moses and from another story in John chapter 21. But the first lesson we're going to learn today about following God's leading is this. Number one, if you're taking notes, you can write this down. Number one, our first step is a step of faith. Our first step is a step of faith. Did God say, hey, Moses, do the easiest thing first? No. He had to say yes to the hard thing before God started to show him himself along the process. Now, the sign that God promised wasn't the only sign that Moses got. He immediately after that starts to show him other signs. There's the plagues, there's a parting of the Red Sea. Eventually, Moses is very convinced that God is with him, right? Even before they worship him on this mountain. But he said God wanted to give him the long-range look before he said yes to the short range. He says, I want you to say yes. And it's going to take a step of faith, but when you say yes, things are going to change and things are going to look different. Does that make sense to you guys? You got to say yes. And it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be a step of faith, but I'm telling you right now, if you say yes to God, if you say yes to the invitation, you will see the goodness of God in your life. You will. Now, there's a story in John chapter 21 that I want to read for you guys, and John chapter 21 is the last chapter in the book of John. And the book of John is about the life of a man named Jesus. Not John, Jesus. And at the end of Jesus' life, we know what happened, right? He died on the cross, and he rose again, right? So everything you are about to read happens after Jesus has died on the cross and rose again. You guys ready for it? John chapter 21. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, which were James and John, they're two guys, and two other disciples who obviously weren't that cool because they didn't make the cut of names, right? But Simon Peter, he says something. He goes, I'm going fishing. Now, if you hear me say I'm going fishing, that means I'm taking a day off. It means I'm going to go breathe some fresh air, and I'm going to go have some fun with some friends, right? Like that's what, if I'm going fishing, you can say, wow, that's awesome. Good job. But if Peter says I'm going fishing, that's radically different. Because before Jesus came into his life and called him to follow him, Peter was a fisherman. It was work. And what Peter is saying as he's around the other disciples is that Jesus died, Jesus rose again, Jesus saying, here, I'm going back. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with myself. It's a little uncomfortable. It's a little uncertain. There's some, like I thought Jesus was going to be the guy that led us out from under captivity of the Romans and all this stuff, but he's gone, so back to the old life. You ever felt that way sometimes? Where you said yes to God, and then it kind of gets uncomfortable and uncertain, and there's a little bit of stress in your life, and you're going, maybe I'll just go back. See, that's what Peter did. He went back to an old life. And even if your old life isn't that good, sometimes we're tempted to go back to that old life, huh? So number two, second thing I want you to pick up today is this. There's a temptation to go back. So the first step is a step of faith, so you step out, and you go, kind of scary, step it back, right? Like anybody else felt that way before? Like you said yes to serve on a team at the church, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to make a difference in the world around me. Wow, there's a lot of work to be done. I got to go back here, right? Or God called you financially to give, and you're like, yes, God, I'm going to say yes to you. I'm going to absolutely, wow, I got a bill this week that's really kind of stepping in here, so I'm going to go back to the old way. Anybody ever do that? I've done that. I'm not like super spiritual going, hey, you guys suck at this. I'm preaching to me, okay? This isn't me. Like I've stepped out in faith and gone, man, I'm going to do it this time. I'm going to really make a difference. And I'm going to also step back because it got really scary. And we do that in many areas of our life. We revert to old habits. Maybe you've been trying to kick that addiction. Maybe you've been drinking too much or smoking too much and you know, I can't do this anymore. But when life gets a little uncertain and a little bit more stressful, you go back to that thing, don't you? Not because it's good, but because it's certain. And you can feel differently once you take that in. Or maybe there's a relationship in your life that is leading you in a place you shouldn't go. Maybe it's a friendship. Maybe you're dating someone, right? And you say, you know what? Step of faith time. I'm going to say yes to what God has for me. I'm going to walk away from that old life. But then the first day you feel lonely, what do? And the next day, and the feelings start to come in, and what do? You step back, not because it's a good relationship, but because it's a certain relationship. But God didn't call you to live in certainty. He called you to live in faith. And when we step out in faith, there's a temptation to go back. But can I tell you, don't go back. Don't go back. Because the pain that is behind you, it may be certain, but it's no greater than the pain that's before you. Keep pressing on. Keep pushing forward. It takes just as much effort to go back as it does to go forward. What's behind you is certain, what's in front of you is uncertain, but I'm telling you, there's better things in your uncertain future than there is in your certain past. Does that make sense? Keep walking, there's gonna be temptation to go back. Peter, The guy who God says, Jesus looks at him and goes, on you and all these people, I'm going to build my church out of this group of people right here. And he's going, cool, I'm going to go back to my old life now. Don't do it. Don't do it. The passage continues in John chapter 21. He says this, we'll come too, they all said. So not only is Peter going back to his old life, he's leading other people to go back to the old life. At least he's a leader, right? That's the only redeeming thing we got. So they went out on the boat, but they caught nothing all night. Can I teach you something real quick? If you go back to your old life, it's not going to be fun. You ain't going to catch nothing. Your old life, you know what it is. It may be comfortable, it may be reassuring, it may be steady Eddie, right? But you're not going to catch anything. You're not going to move forward. You're not walking in faith. You got to keep saying yes to God and keep saying yes to him every day. So they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples could not see who he was. So Jesus is on the beach, but can they see who he is? No. Do they know that it's Jesus? No, they do not know that it's Jesus, but we know that it's Jesus, okay? So the passage continues. He called out, Jesus is calling, fellows, have you caught any fish? No, they replied. And then he said, throw your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some. So they did. They threw their net on the other side of the boat. Now, what's interesting to me is they're in a boat. They've been fishing all night. They've caught nothing. Some rando walks down the beach, and he says, hey, throw your nets on the other side, which at best is what, 6 or 8 feet different from where they're currently fishing, right? And they go, sure, let's try that. That'll probably work. So they do it. When was the last time you were at work and some random person walked up to you and just goes, you're doing it wrong. Why don't you do this instead? Very slight little, almost nothing of a change, and it worked. Or you even listen to them. Or you're like, I'm going to hit you in the head because I'm really frustrated right now because I haven't got anything all night long, right? Like, do you listen to that person? No, you don't, do you? But the disciples did. Now, let me give you a little bit of history. Even though they didn't know it was Jesus, it kind of felt like it was Jesus. And here's what I mean by that. If you go back to the beginning of Jesus' relationship with James and John and Peter and Andrew and these other guys, he was teaching on the shore. And the people were crowding all around him. And so he got into some boats and put out from shore just a little bit so he could get some distance from the crowd and he could teach everybody all at once. And when he was done teaching, he said to them, let's go out to the water and catch some fish. And they're like, we've been fishing all night. We haven't caught anything. And he goes, well, let's try it one more time. And so they go out in the water and they drop their nets in the water and they catch a miracle catch of fish and they bring it all back in, right? That's how they started their relationship with Jesus. Now, here they are at the end of their relationship with Jesus, and they're out in the water and they're catching nothing, and some random guy on the beach says, hey, put your net on the other side, and so they did, and look what happens. And they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. See, were they sure that this was Jesus? No. But were they willing to give up on the probability or the possibility that it potentially was Jesus? No. See, there's some things in your life that you go, this could be God, but I'm not sure, so I'm just going to wait, or I'm going to ask for a sign, or I'm going to look for something, just super spiritually so that'll give me a confirmation. And sometimes we do that and we miss the opportunity. Because sometimes it looks like God and we're not sure. Wouldn't it be better just to say yes more often than we say, show me a sign? Wouldn't it be better just to say yes to what God has for us? Does that make sense? See, if they had said, never mind, you don't know what you're talking about, we've been fishing all night, they would have never caught the fish and they would have never made the connection. Oh, that guy's Jesus, right? I think sometimes in our life we miss Jesus because we say, show me a sign more than we say yes, right? So the third thing I want you to learn this morning is a yes opens our eyes to Jesus. When you say yes, it opens your eyes to Jesus. Here's the thing. Once the fish came up out of the water, they go, oh, I remember this part. I remember this from my past. I remember this from my history. I remember the time that Jesus did this before. And look at this in John chapter 21, verse 7. It says, then the disciple Jesus loved, it's John, but he never really lists himself in his own book. He says, the disciple that Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. Like remember when this happened before? That guy that we don't know who it is, I know who it is now. And when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic for he had taken or stripped it for work, and he jumped in the water and he headed to the shore. Went straight for Jesus. Here's what's happening. They said yes, and there was the revelation. You see, there was an invitation. Hey, just do this little thing on the other side of the boat. Invitation, taste. And when they did, they saw, or they had that revelation, that was Jesus. And Peter's like, if that's Jesus, I know what I need to do next. I need to get out of this boat. Because I left him. Remember, I left him. I said, I'm going back to go fishing. I'm going back to my old life, but you know what? I shouldn't have. And he swims to the shore to meet Jesus. The other disciples are a little more practical. They get the fish in the boat, and they're like, we're keeping this. And they take it all to the shore. And at that moment, Jesus has a conversation with Peter and kind of sets his heart straight and sets him back on the path he's supposed to go. But it started with a yes. Yes opens your eyes to Jesus. And I think sometimes in our lives, we ask, Jesus, I wish I could see you more in my everyday life. I wish I could see you more in my relationships. I wish I could see you more in my finances. I wish I could see you more in my purpose, in my calling. But could it be we don't see him as much in our purpose and our calling and our relationships and our families and our finances is because we keep saying, God, give me a sign instead of just saying yes? Because a yes will open your eyes to Jesus. A yes will let you see in faith. And when you taste, you see. But you've got to say yes. You've got to say yes to the invitation to taste. Now, the most extravagant yes any one of us can say yes to, or the most extravagant invitation we can say yes to, is the invitation of salvation, where Jesus said, I've paid the price for sin. I died on the cross. I rose again. I have conquered death. And I want to bring you along with me. I want to adopt you into my family. Will you be a part of my family? And look what it says in the book of Ephesians, chapter 2. God saved you by his grace when you believed, or when you said yes. You said, yes, God, I want what you have. Yes, I'm giving my life to you. Yes, I want you to forgive me for my past. And you can't take credit for this. It's a gift from God. It's not this thing that you did, or you're so good, or you found the way where nobody else could find a way. Nope. You just said yes. You said yes to the invitation that God extended to you. And when you say yes to that invitation, God says, I'm going to save you by my grace. And that's where it all starts for us. The first yes you should always have in your life towards God is the yes to change the inside of me, to make me new, and to say, yes, God, I want forgiveness. Yes, God, I want to be made new in you. Yes, God, I say yes to the invitation to be a part of your family. Now, in a room this size, there's going to be all different kinds of reactions we're going to have to this message. Some of us, we need to say yes to God for the very first time and become what is called a Christian. For some of us, we need to say yes to the prompting that he placed on our heart a long time ago, and we just kept going, show me a sign, show me a sign, show me a sign. And for some of us, we might feel like we're caught somewhere in the middle where I just don't see Jesus in my life. I committed my life to Christ, but could it be there's some small things that God can say, point to in your life and say, you asked for a sign here where you should have said yes there, right? Where is your yes? Is it yes to salvation? Is it yes to the invitation to the purpose and calling? Where's your yes? Here's what I like to do with no one moving around or no noises. Can you just quietly, right where you are, take a moment of reflection? For some of you, that means closing your eyes and bowing your head so you can focus, and I'm like that. I need to kind of block out the world. Wherever you are on this spectrum, I want you to find a way this morning to say yes to him. And if it's your yes for the first time, your yes that says, I need to become a follower of yours, Jesus. I need to become a Christian. In a moment, I'm going to lead you through a prayer. And it's not the words or that I'm leading you that's special at all. It's just your heart saying yes to him. That's what matters. And I would love it if quietly, right where you are, you said yes. So together, let's pray this prayer. This morning, God, I pray that you would forgive me. I say yes to everything you have to offer. Yes to salvation. Yes to being adopted into your family. Yes to the new life you've called me to. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to the way things were. They weren't that great without you. But today I want new life in you, new hope in you, new joy and peace in you. So today, God, I say yes to everything you have for me. And the calling you've placed on my heart to do, to give, to love, today I say yes. I don't want to ask for signs. I just want to act in obedience. Say yes to all that you have for me. Thank you, Jesus. In your name we pray. And everybody says, why don't you put your hands together? People just pray that prayer. Thank you so much for joining us online today. If you prayed that prayer with us, we would like to help you on your spiritual journey. If you don't mind going to theshorechurch.com or emailing us at hello@theshorechurch.com, we can send you some information to start this spiritual journey of faith. And of course, we'd always love to see you in person at The Shore Church, 3375 Fruitville Road.